We've all been trapped in this conversation. You're listening to someone lay out a rock-solid case. They have the data, the historical precedents, the bulletproof logic. The destination they arrived at has absolutely nothing to do with the journey they just took you on. In logic, this jarring pivot has a formal name. It's called the drawing the wrong conclusion fallacy. This happens when an arguer presents excellent evidence that clearly supports one specific outcome, but instead of landing there, their logic snaps to an entirely different conclusion. This breaks the relevance criterion. For an argument to work, evidence must be relevant to the specific claim. If it fails this test, the argument collapses. You can have 100% factual, perfectly researched premises, but if you use that truth to answer the wrong question, your argument is worthless. Let's look at how this plays out in real life, starting with public education. Imagine an advocate argues that the current method for evaluating teachers is completely inadequate. They point out that right now, if a teacher performs poorly, administrators have almost no effective mechanism to remove them from the classroom. That is a completely valid set of premises. But then they make the leap. Therefore, all teachers should only be hired for a temporary term of service, after which they are fired and have to re-enter the job market. Wait, the evidence didn't point there at all. If the problem is a lack of systematic evaluation, the logical conclusion is that we need to build a better evaluation system, not arbitrarily fire the entire workforce every few years. We see the same structural flaw in legal debates. Take the ongoing tension between the courts and reporters. Someone might argue that investigative journalists perform a vital civic duty. They dig out the facts, they keep the public informed, and force officials to stay honest. Again, excellent premises. But then comes the conclusion. Therefore, the courts are acting grossly unfairly when they send reporters to prison for refusing to reveal their confidential sources. Do journalists do valuable work? Yes. Does that fact have any bearing on the legal parameters of court fairness and subpoena compliance? No. When we emotionally align with a premise, like supporting a free press, it's incredibly easy to go blind to an irrelevant conclusion. Now, if you want to see this fallacy mastered as an art form, look at political discourse. During a high-profile press conference, President George W. Bush was asked about gay marriage. Instead of directly addressing the legal framework, he offered a premise about his personal beliefs, stating he believed in the sanctity of marriage. And from that vague premise, he immediately jumped to his conclusion. Therefore, marriage should only be between a man and a woman. If you map the logic, the bridge is out. The idea that an institution is holy or sacred provides zero logical connection to restricting the gender of the participants, at least not without supplying several more highly specific premises. Public figures rely on this tactic constantly. They lay down an emotionally resonant, universally appealing premise, and then hijack that goodwill to sell a predetermined policy that the evidence never actually supported. So how do you defend yourself in real time? Yelling, "That's illogical," rarely wins a debate. You have to actively redirect the conversation. Your first tool is simple redirection. When someone presents a great case but a terrible conclusion, step in. Point out the exact logical destination their evidence actually leads to, and invite them to adopt it instead. If they dig their heels in and stubbornly cling to their original point, you shift tactics. You politely inform them that if they want to defend that specific conclusion, they are going to need a completely different set of evidence. And if all else fails, you deploy the conversational trump card, the absurd counterexample. You mirror their broken logic with something like this. Hey, you and I both like the exact same things. Plus, sharing a place would save us a ton on rent. Therefore, we should get married. Gathering factual evidence is hard work, but it is only half the battle. Because if your facts don't point directly to your destination, your entire argument is already lost in the woods.